Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam, out running errands, and I watched a new movie last night that I probably wasn't going to watch, and I think had this not been such a weak weekend for new releases, I probably wouldn't have watched this movie. It is Hustle, the latest Adam Sandler picture, and I was surprised, because the thing is, Adam Sandler has good dramatic acting ability. He's a great dramatic actor. He doesn't showcase it often. You don't see it as often as you see the comedic, look at the funny voice Adam Sandler that everyone is used to at this point. I went the totally wrong way if I'm going where I'm going. But just because it doesn't get showcased enough doesn't mean that the ability isn't there. And the ability being there is one of his, one of the things kind of unsung about him as a talent. Because he's had, Uncut Gems most recently, where he was, playing a dramatic role. He had a dramatic role in, Punch Drunk Love. I mean, and then even some of his comedic roles early on were more, I hate breaking in new shoes, were more serious. Not serious per se, but more, they were more serious. I would say that, The Wedding Singer is a more serious role than, Grown Ups, or Jack and Jill, or That's My Boy, or any number of other stupid-ass movies he's made. And there is always some kind of emotional core to the movies. Even Grown Ups has a strong emotional center. You don't really have that as much in that other shitty-ass movie he made, That's My Boy doesn't really have that, and I think that Jack and Jill kind of gets lost in the messaging of the movie that's around it, but there's still something there, an emotional center to the movie that's going to be like, oh, okay, that's why I'm here. I'm here because of this. So, the newest one is a movie called Hustle, and it came out on, on Netflix as part of this huge deal he signed. And it is, it's not comedic. I wouldn't say not comedic at all, because it does have its moments. But it is certainly more it is certainly closer to a drama. And he has a great job. He plays Stanley, who's a scout for the Philadelphia 76ers. For those of you who don't know, that's a basketball team. And what he does is he goes out abroad and looks for talent. In, Eastern Europe, South America, all of these untapped markets for the NBA. He goes out and he looks for, he looks for the potential that's out there. That's not the people who are going to be day one, day two draft picks. The talent that comes from afar. Problem is, he's got a daughter who's going to be going away to college soon, and he wants to spend more time with her. He wants to be able to be at home. This guy in front of me is such okay, let me paint a picture for you here about what this guy's got going on. He's got a magnet on the back of his car that's a woman pole dancing on a fishing hook. And I just now noticed that. But, so he goes out and he's trying to, he's trying to get someone so that way he can be on he can be on the coaching staff, because he doesn't want to be a scout anymore, because the scout doesn't get to spend time with his family. I feel like my problem with this inherently is that I think that the daughter is too old for this to work, because it's not like she's entering high school. She is going away to college. She's trying to get into film school. That is, that is what her thing is, and that plays into the movie. And for her to, be at the stage of him be like, I gotta be home for my family, feels a little, too little too late, almost. But whatever. So he goes out to Spain, and he finds this guy, Bo, who's a fantastic basketball player. He's got raw talent that hasn't really been molded into anything. He works in a factory, and it's let's bring him to the United States to try and get him into the combine, so that way he can be seen by, people, and then end up playing for the NBA. So they entice him in with a very lucrative contract. He moves to he comes to the United States with him, and then and then he trains him. Like, it's not like, I'm thinking $1 Million Arm, which is the John Hamm movie that Disney did about the cricket players that he scouts to become pitchers in the MLB, where he's out there doing, all of that and all that. It's kind of like a reverse Here Comes the Boom, but not intended to be a comedy. And also more entertaining than Here Comes the Boom. So he does all this, and then, he's training the kid, and that's what the movie's about him training this kid to be a better basketball player, so he can, and then while it's going on, he's confronting his demons about his past, so that way he can become a better man himself. I mean, it's kind of paint by numbers, but it's a sports movie. Sports movies are inherently paint by numbers. Sports movies are one of the perennial favorites of audiences because of how simplistic the plots are. They're not designed to be hard to understand. It's a very, it is quite simply a guy who is, it is almost always someone who has a easy to attain goal. Or not easy to attain goal, but it's a clear and easy to quantify goal. Like, I can look at him being, he wants to play in the NBA. That is, I may have said NFL a few times, but he wants to play in the NBA. That is Bo's goal. So if Bo is going to play in the NBA, he's got to do X, Y, and Z. There's going to be some kind of antagonistic force in the movie in the form of an organization or a person who's against him, who's going to try and be the one in his stead, but that is not the force that he is fighting with. That's just the physical incarnation of what the opposing force is, which is his own problems, his own insecurities, his own, what's holding him back is just personified by this person or this opposing force. That's just, bringing to life what they feel about themselves. So really, when Rocky is fighting, let's take Rocky for example. In Rocky, when he's fighting, Apollo Creed, he's not yes, he's fighting Apollo Creed, but the story isn't about, especially the first Rocky. The later ones become more about who he's fighting and what that confrontation is. But especially in the first Rocky, it's not about him trying to beat Apollo Creed and become the heavyweight world champion, or I think it was heavyweight world champion. It was about him becoming a better person and becoming, getting the chance to play on that big stage and falling into that newfound stardom that he's got as the Italian Stallion. And that's kind of what this movie is. The difference is now when we see these kind of movies, we don't see them end in a place where the person doesn't really win. I think the closest to that in the modern era is probably Madden, when they did Long Shot, and Long Shot ends with you not getting the number 1 draft pick. Because at the end of this movie, he gets drafted by the Celtics. And I think that there's a really great bittersweet moment that is one of the most true to sports moments I've ever seen in a movie, where you have these two guys who are now going to be playing against each other, but they have such a bond and such a connection between the two of them that they are completely, there's a moment before the game where it's hey, good to see you, and there's a heartfelt, emotional moment, and then the two of them separate, and they're both we're going to kick each other's asses. That's what we're here to do. And it's a great kind of, what's it called? It's a great thing that happens in sports that doesn't really get addressed in movies too much. So, what else is there? What else is in this movie? I mean, Adam Sandler's great in it. The guy who plays Bo is great. I feel like the only issue I really have with the movie is kind of the pacing, where the training of Bo to get him into condition for the NBA happens, it feels too quickly, and then everything kind of bad happens entirely in the confines of the last 40 minutes of the movie, and you're okay, wait, you get this whiplash of okay, so what's happening now, where it's he becomes, this world-class superstar, and everything, good starts happening for him. Then it gets taken away. Then he's got to do the social media campaign to get back into everyone's good graces because it came out that he was, that he had a criminal record or something like that. Then he goes to, what's it called? Then he goes to the other one. Then he gets into the Combine, and the Combine happens, and he gets into a fight at the Combine, so then he has to do something else, and it's like, I don't think you necessarily need to have that additional fight at the Combine and then another one after it, because I feel like it does undermine character development, and then on top of it, it does, again, feel like you're backtracing. And it feels like you're padding out the runtime when that happens. And I that it's not necessarily the worst thing on the planet, but it does make you go like, hold on, what the fuck? Can we just wrap this up and be like, get him to the point at the end of the movie where he's achieved something. Like, that I think is the problem with this movie, is that they spend too much time doing stuff like that. So let's see, what else is there? I think I've kind of addressed everything. It's a pretty good movie. Especially if you go into it with very low expectations and being like, oh, it's an Adam Sandler movie. Especially considering that, Uncut Gems happens, but, I don't, when I think of Adam Sandler, Happy Madison, I don't think of Uncut Gems. I think of, what's it called? Grown Ups, or the other one, or, That's My Boy, or Jack and Jill, or any of these other movies. I've kind of, I don't want to say sullied his reputation because that sounds too harsh, but kind of cast a pall over his, over his filmography, where it's like, that's his most recent work that's kind of had widespread notoriety because it's been wide releases designed for mass consumption. And a lot of people love those movies. I don't like taking the piss out of movies that I don't particularly like, because someone out there, look, they Grown Ups is passable. Grown Ups 2 is not great. I don't like Grown Ups 2, but, there are people out there who like it. And it's a serviceable family movie. I'm not in the target audience. So for me to sit here and be like, oh, that movie's shitty, it's like, all right, cool, you're punching down at a kid's movie. Have fun. Come on. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely, the movie's not really not bad. So, yes. Especially in the scheme of what kind of shit Netflix has been putting out lately. I will also say, I think they go a little overboard in terms of cameos of basketball players, where it can get distracting. Also, look, the one thing that I can never suspend disbelief with is how Adam Sandler always, and even Kevin James in his movies, always manages to land these incredibly attractive women that are way out of his league. In this one, he's married to Queen Latifah, and I'm like, really? And on top of it, I'm like, that's what I'm getting hung up on, is that, this guy's married to Queen Latifah. That's the weird thing that I'm like, oh, that's the line too far. I don't know. But look, if you have even, a passing interest in basketball, you might find this movie entertaining. Even if you don't like basketball, there's stuff in here for everyone. It is designed to be, viewable by anyone who, is logging onto Netflix. It's got a human interest story that is kind of universal. It's the overcoming of adversity, even if, the adversity is a sporting event and people don't play sports. It still is a quantifiable and easily, defined goal that is, I can look at and be like, okay, so here's what we're trying to do, here's what we're going to do to do it, and here's someone putting in the effort, and the only thing standing between them and doing it is their own mind and their willingness to achieve that goal. So it does have that kind of universal appeal to it. That said, pacing is a little bit of a problem, but if you can get past that, you'll be able to enjoy the movie. So we'll wrap up there for today. Tomorrow morning, we will be talking about the new episode of The Time Traveler's Wife, the second to last episode. yeah, I don't know how that show's going to end, and quite honestly, I'm at a point where I don't really care too much. I just want it to be over. Because it's like, who gives a fuck at this point? Like, I don't know. We'll talk about it tomorrow when I see the new episode. So, and I will still do Irma Vep, or whatever the fuck the name of that other show on HBO Max is. I'll catch up on that at some point in the near future, too. But until then, have a great rest of your week.